All right, hi guys. Quick lesson here on what's called a double y-axis graph. My guess is that most of you have probably not done this before, even in your math classes. And the purpose of this type of graph is to be able to look at multiple different kinds of data and compare those easily. So if you had, for example, two graphs up here, if you look on the screen here, you have a graph showing, and I didn't take the time to put the units on here, but a graph showing the relationship between a student's absences and time. So if you track that throughout the school year perhaps, and those go up over time. And then you also looked at the same student and you looked at their grade point average over the same period of time. Now the crucial part here is that it must, in order to use a double y-axis graph, both of your graphs must have the same unit of measurement at the same intervals for the x-axis. So both of these are going to look at time, and I should have written that there, time, let's say 1 school year. And so you can look at the student's grades, and obviously straight line is probably not going to be accurate, but for our purposes this will get the point across. So the student's GPA goes down over time, and their absences go up over time. So the purpose of a double y-axis graph is to be able to take these two graphs and essentially combine them. So we're going to take this, we're going to take this graph here, okay, and we're going to take this graph here, and we're essentially going to combine them. We're going to put them both together as one single graph. Okay? And so what you'll see is that absences here are going to be on this y-axis, and what we've done with this GPA y-axis is we've flipped it to the other side. So we flip it to the right-hand side. So now this GPA y-axis is over here. Both graphs show time. So they show a period of time for the student, an equivalent period of time. Now notice that for these you do not have to even have the same numbering interval for each of these y-axes. For example, the absences count by 2s, the GPAs count by 0.5. So you're looking at a 4.0, a 3.5, a 3.0, a 2.5, and so forth. These two y-axes can be numbered completely differently. What you're always going to want to do with your graphs is just to make sure that whatever numbering you choose for each side of these, you look at your data set ahead of time and you spread these out to fill up the page as best as possible. The more you spread them out, the more subtle changes you'll be able to see. If you compact them and both of these lines, for example, end up in the very bottom here, they're going to look relatively flat. They're not going to give you as much information to compare. So again, let's look at these absences. So we're going to represent the students, and color is always a great way to represent the two different graphs using different colored lines. You can use patterns if you want, if you're just using a pencil, but I would highly recommend after you've done it in pencil, made sure it's correct, just go over one of them with a colored pencil or something, or a highlighter, just so you can tell. So what you might even want to do here is to take, for example, we'll do something like this. We'll just make sure we know that absences are in red and GPA is green. So we got that there. So that's kind of our key. And then we can go ahead and take our lines. And so for this student, we see that over time, from the beginning of the year until later, their absences go up. And that over time, so you always start from the left and work right. So as you're looking at this graph at first, just ignore the GPA because you're only taking this information and putting it in And then when you put the GPA information in, you're ignoring this, so you'll ignore this side, and you'll still move left to right on the bottom and put the GPA information in. So again, on the left-hand side, this is the beginning of the school year, this is the end of the school year. So you'll always move forward in time. We don't have time machines yet. So you're going to go ahead, and the student started out with a 4.0 and ended up with a 0.5 GPA after their, looks like 15 or 16 absences. So that's a quick lesson on just how to create a double y-axis graph. You'll have to do several of these coming up, and they're really useful when comparing information. As we could see, we might describe this relationship, think about a mathematical term, this would be what we call an inverse relationship, meaning that when one of them goes up, the other goes down. As absences go up, the GPA goes down. As the GPA, if you worked backwards in time, which we try not to, but as the GPA goes up, the absences go down. Or you could move forward in time and say as the GPA goes down, the absences go up. Okay? Sometimes you'll notice a correlative effect in that, you know, when one of them goes up, the other also goes up, and when one goes down, the other also goes down. And then, of course, sometimes, as you many times see in data, there's no relationship at all. But that's why we look at this, is to get the best idea that we can of whether there is some sort of relationship between these two sets of data.